Yesterday, we learned the initials OG mean original gangster and Ollie Gordon is OG too. Today, however, we have some amends to make. Experience equals XP, and there is no substitute for XP at LB.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You can find us visually on YouTube, me personally on Twitter at AllDayOState, and all of your podcasting platforms. Make sure if you're out on podcast land, leave a review for us. Hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe. Get down in the comments section. Let's have some fun. Speaking of fun, today we are partially brought to you by Prize Picks. Make sure that you go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege to get that first match deposit up to $100. There is no substitute for experience, which the initials obviously are XP. And we had some experience, XP, in the LB room that I think I overlooked. So I have to give flowers to our main man, Xavier Benson. Nick Martin is now number one in the Big 12 in tackles. He just passed OU's Danny Stutzman, 71 tackles, number one in the Big 12. Oklahoma State actually has several players in the top 25 of the Big 12 in some defensive categories, right? You have Nick Martin, number one in the conference in tackles, number 5 in the conference, Kendal Daniels. And then if you go back even a little bit further, number 15 in the conference, Trey Rucker, number 19 in the conference, Collin Oliver. Tackles for loss, you have the same argument there. Number 3 in the Big 12, Nick Martin. Number 5 in the Big 12, Collin Oliver. Sacks, when you go to that, Nick Martin, number 8 in the Big 12. Collin Oliver, number 9 in the Big 12. Passes defended is something that we need to kind of work on. Cam Epps is holding up his end of the bargain in the interceptions department. Number 1 in the Big 12 in fumbles recovered, Kendal Daniels. Number 1 in the Big 12 in fumbles forced, Collin Oliver. This linebacker room came into the season as likely the most questionable. Now, we did discuss post-fall that the linebacker room did look better than anticipated. But the depth was at safety. The talent, for the most part, was at safety. Moving Collin Oliver to linebacker was an experiment, right? It just was. Yes, he played a significant amount of it at Edmond Santa Fe in high school, but it's a different animal. And as we've seen, even with the KU game, the last few minutes of the KU game, Collin Oliver is still a force to be reckoned with at defensive end. You could argue that we could just, throw caution to the wind, throw 15, 20 pounds on the dude and make him an All-American defensive end because he already has been an All-American defensive end. But him shedding 7 pounds, getting a little bit quicker, and moving to linebacker, you're seeing it more and more that it makes sense. It's a good fit. He still gets beat on coverage every now and again, but when it comes to passes defended, he's right next to Cameron Epps in that department, in the top 25 of the Big 12. Trey Rucker has been a breath of fresh air to some degree. And we're going to talk about the safeties as well. But, guys, I have been pretty critical of our main man, Xavier, because you see the talent, right? You see the athleticism. You understand that this offseason, guys like Xavier Benson and DeAndre Jackson were the ones to originally grab everybody by the shirt collar and say, no. We're not going to have this. This ain't going to happen. And that leadership has shown up even more recently. When Neil Brown says this is likely the best linebacker core in the conference that we have played all season, we proved it. The linebacker room did exceptional. The linebacker room accounted for 34 tackles by themselves. So we knew that getting somebody like Justin Wright, because of the XP experience, right next to the XP experience of Xavier Benson, could do some things just from a maturity standpoint, a security standpoint. But the emergence of Nick Martin has allowed those guys and Collin Oliver to look even better, in my opinion. I mean, it helps when you have some safeties that are predispositioned to play linebacker, to handle things like a linebacker, and have their eyes in kind of a linebacker style of mode. But there is no way that any of us could have thought that Nick Martin would lead the Big 12 this late into the season in tackles. Or the fact that we've got defensive guys that statistically, fumbles forced, recovered, all that fun jazz, that are in the top half of the Big 12, top 3, top 5, top 10. We've got O-State dudes defensively sprinkled all over the place. But when you look at some of the offensive production that teams have had against us, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if the linebackers are living up to the bill. And I think this is a perfect representation of why we're making amends here to our main man, Xavier Benson, because he actually does do a lot of things that don't exactly pop on film. You can't hear on film him directing traffic, him correlating the coverages and what they need to bounce to and go to and what to look for. And this guy's in motion. Look out for that slot. You don't hear all that in film. You don't hear all that in highlights. You only get that internally. And the leadership that he has provided is actually a large point of what Nick Martin's doing. Nick Martin is allowed to just athletically do the daggone thing, to do his thing, because of Xavier Benson. And I personally wasn't giving Xavier enough love. So if Xavier continues to be the leader that gets everybody in the right spots, Nick Martin's going to continue to lead the Big 12. Collin Oliver is going to continue to make another case for an all Big 12, all-American style of candidacy. I love Ollie. We can talk about Ollie all day, every day, because this Heisman campaign, it is the real deal of Evander Holyfield. But Neil Brown saw something on film with the linebackers that I just wasn't paying attention to because of some of the problems we've had in the back end, because of some of the, I don't want to say ineptitude, that's not the right word, but inability to cause a big stink up front of the defensive line. The defensive tackles have done a very good job eating up the A-gaps. The defensive ends have done a pretty good job in coverage, a pretty good job batting balls down. But I still think the D-line could be doing more and should be doing more to get not only pressure on the quarterback, but get him to the daggone ground. In the sacks department, Collin Oliver's up there, Kendal Daniels up there, Nick Martin's up there. So we're still having guys that are making the effects necessary. That's what you want. You want your defensive linemen to just eat up. They're not going to kill it with statistics. I understand that. But just a little bit more outside pressure, a couple more sacks here and there from the defensive ends, to me, would go a long ways. But the safeties, they've got some work to do. Not a big cause for concern for me personally, which we're about to jump into. But another thing we got to jump into, ladies and gentlemen, is LinkedIn. We all know that today's hiring market, it's a complete high stakes wager that realistically, makes you want to avoid the process as much as possible, which is exactly why you have to use LinkedIn. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available 24/7. Got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They're going to help you find the right people for your team faster and, our favorite, for free. Just go create a job post, all right? Add it to the purple hiring hashtag frame. Spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools and screening questions are followed up to make it easy for you to focus on the right candidates with the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize those that you want to interview faster. This is why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus all the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to right now, faster, and you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Go there now to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. So the safety room, still, in my opinion, the most depth, the best athletically that we've potentially ever had, top to bottom. And again, I do think that you can look at the Trey Rucker numbers and tackles, and you can look at the fumbles forced and stuff of the Kendal Daniels, fumbles recovered, to see that there is a lot of bright spots. Guys, we lost Lyric Rawls, who's one of our best tacklers, early on in the season. And the proposition of him coming back, obviously, no bueno. Then steps Cameron Epps. Cameron Epps is much better in coverage than Lyric Rawls or Trey Rucker, but he's not the run support guy that those guys are. And again, I do think that you're seeing some numbers reflective of this, but you're also seeing the lapses in coverage as well. I want to go ahead and chalk a decent amount of it up to, goodness me, sorry, I know words are hard for me. I want to chalk a decent amount of it up to the fact that the schemes that we faced haven't been bad. Garrett Green is a very good athlete with a lot of speed. He was going to give us fits. We knew that. We shut down C.J. Donaldson. So again, this is another litmus test for the linebackers, but we are getting burnt in the back end. From what I can tell, most of it is just being overly aggressive, which is why I'm still not ringing the alarm bells. It's not like we're dropping 8 and still getting burnt. That's not exactly the case. And when we do get beat, it's guys like Kendal and Trey that have their eyes getting cheated a little bit too long in the wrong area for just a couple seconds too long. But if you don't have them playing overly aggressive, then do we look this good stopping the running backs and typically the run game? Probably not, right? There's always a give and take. And right now, the give side of the give and take is we're going to give you a little bit of room to maneuver in the back end. And we're going to rely on our talent, our athleticism, and our length to get enough turnovers and get enough stops to make it worthwhile. The defensive third downs, though, goodness me, how we're so good on fourth down and so disastrously abysmal on third down. Like, that's got to be the next thing that Bryan Nardo gets fixed. If Cincinnati, who does have a competent offense and a good quarterback and a phenomenal All-American defensive tackle, I mean, they've got some guys sprinkled in that will make things potentially interesting if we don't capitalize. Capitalization, that's the theme. That's been the Gundy theme for me for a little while now. He's taken the necessary steps right now to potentially get there. You got to take care of business against Cincinnati. I'm not overlooking Cincinnati. We're going to do more breakdowns of Cincinnati tomorrow and a little bit later on in the week. But I want to, accentuate the fact that we're going to do a regular show every day. We're likely going to go live as well every day in preparation for the live show Saturday. I'm excited. I cannot wait to get to Stilly Thursday. But again, the next thing that you want to see, if we do still give up some back-end things, but we're better on third down, that's the next evolutionary process that we're looking for in Bryan Nardo this season. Stopping the run was a problem early. We fixed that. Stopping the pass is a little bit of an issue now. Now we work to fix that. Mobile quarterbacks are always going to give people problems. And if you can contain somebody's mobility, then typically, right, that means somebody may be a little extra open in the back end. So again, the give and take, it's always going to exist. It's always going to revolve around numerical advantages, which is why you have teams like KU that are so superior in creating those mismatches, which is why OU is not going to have an easy go up in Lawrence. I mean, I'm kind of indifferent there. Obviously, I'm going to cheer for KU, but if OU wins and we have a top 4, top 5 undefeated OU for Bedlam and we beat Cincinnati in homecoming, sign me up. It's a win-win. It's a massive game with bigger eyeballs. And if we take care of business, right, what does that do for the rest of the season? If we do lose and we still win out, guys, I don't see, there's no way OU wins out. There's no way Texas wins out. The Big 12 is not as good as last year, but the parity still exists. We saw it last weekend. And Houston should have got Texas. Texas got some home cooking in Houston Stadium. I know it's just one call, and I'm not going to stress on it, but it is still a little bit wild to me. But again, Bryan Nardo, if you adjust the third down defense, we can work on, getting the secondary a little bit more up to snuff. It's pick your poison. And right now, got to shut down the passing game as much as physically possible. Because, again, trying not to look ahead, but OU, their running game is not very good at all. Their running game looks like our running game last season. So they're pretty one-dimensional. If you stop them in one area, it traditionally, this season, it's going to make them go to another area. I'm sure Cincinnati, as we'll talk about more tomorrow and a little bit later on live this evening, they've got some issues that we're going to have to resolve. But it's a very winnable game. It's a game that we should win. And again, we're going to talk about the Bedlam W recently that is going to help build even more flavor. It's going to bake it in naturally a little bit better. But we're talking about capitalization. We're talking about baking things in a little bit better. Y'all, you got to go check out Prize Picks. It's the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in America, Northern America for sure. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play any daily fantasy sports. You just bet against the numbers instead of all the other players, pros, sharks, and craziness that is. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 players' projected stat lines and watch the winnings. Prize Picks gives you the ability to mix and match college players, NFL players, different sports. And then it's just over under, basically. And right now, you can win up to 25 times your money this football season. You select 2 or more players, pick the more or less than projected stats, place the entries. That's it. It's super simple. It makes watching a lot more fun. So do yourself a favor. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use that code, all one word, Locked On College, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, pick 2 to 6 players. Have some fun. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Go do that right about now. So we got a Bedlam W last night in soccer. And we're going to have a live guest on a little bit later this evening that's going to dive into that because, he was at the game, goes pretty much all the games. So he can give us a little bit better understanding and dive in of what this soccer season has looked like. It's not bad, but we did end a 5-game losing skid to beat OU. So does that mean the stars are aligning for this Bedlam build-up to be a little bit more? Again, we got to take care of Cincy. We'll discuss how we could potentially do that. But it's hard not to get pumped up for this one. It's hard not to ride this Ollie Heisman type of candidacy into this Bedlam. Dylan Gabriel is firmly supplanted as a top 3, top 4 Heisman guy. And unless some devastating injury happens, I don't see that changing much. So you've got a Bedlam with 2 legitimate guys that are in the Heisman conversation. And I do think that if we just absolutely boat race Cincinnati, we should crack the top 25. We're 31 right now in the AP. Very easily, if we just boat race, we could end up number 25. So top 25 matchup for potentially the last Bedlam ever that needs to be a night game. It could set it up to just mean more. But not overlooking Cincinnati. Before we talk about the ball player side of Cincinnati, this homecoming, if you have never been to Stillwater, Oklahoma for a homecoming, like it's worth a trip in and of itself, regardless of the game, the team, doesn't matter. But this homecoming does provide a pretty good opportunity for Gundy and company to grow this momentum just a hair more. It doesn't matter what the offensive production is against Cincinnati. Sure, would we all love Ollie Gordon to run for another 280 yards? Yeah, that would be great. But this is a game where they're going to give us some opportunities to take some shots. I have not been overly impressed with our wide receivers' 50-50 balls on deep shots, but I also haven't been overly impressed with all of Alan Bowman's deep shots. He does throw some absolute dimes, some gorgeous beauties, but he also drops some duds, right? To me, very reminiscent of Taylor Cornelius. But Taylor obviously ran significantly better. Although I don't mind us sprinkling in a run here and there just to keep the defenses a little bit more honest, which we have seen the last couple weeks. So, it's a good time. I cannot wait. I'll be in Stillwater Thursday. Got to meet with the T-shirt people about Ollie Gordon for Heisman shirts. So, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. The fake imposter account has been suspended, but don't think we're gonna just simply rest there, because hey, I'll call a spade, right? Just like I appreciate Gundy being in the building, more involved, and it showing directly on the field. Those people, the imposter people who pretended to be me and all the crazy stuff they were saying to recruits and parents and coaches and high school coaches, it did have an effect, right? I'm a stats guy. You know I love my stats. And there was a numerical value associated with somebody infiltrating and permeating the show. And yeah, it's going to be resolved. And I just want to tell all of you out there, thank you for tuning in once again to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Go ahead and hit the daggone like. Dislike it if you don't. Leave a comment and say, hey, you crazy Cody fella, you could have done X, Y, or Z to make it better. Give me some talking points. I do take advice. I love engagement, guys. From the Spotify, Apple podcast side of things, go leave a review. We got to continue to right this ship. We're almost at our objective goal for subs by December. But I wanted to shatter it. We still can. We still got time. And we're winning. Let's face it. That helps. That absolutely helps. So, all right, y'all. You know I love you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Stay tuned for the live show later. Another regular show tomorrow. And we're going live again tomorrow evening. Likely with Aubin Fippen to get a little bit more of a Cowgirl in-depth check-in as well. And then we head to Stillwater. All righty, y'all. Later, Tater.